Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome in to the PWTorch Fireside Chat, the flagship edition of the show a day later. It is Friday, May 5th, 2023. I'm PWTorch Assistant Editor Zack Heydorn. That is Tyler Sage. Tyler, man, what's going on? Happy Friday.
Hey, happy Friday. I know. I think usually the only time we've ever done a Friday, usually it's around 4 Eastern, not 3 Eastern. That's when we're recording this live, and there's always a Vince McMahon related huge news dump. So we'll see. Maybe Vince is at. I don't even. Are they in San Juan? I assume they have to be tonight.
Yeah.
Or is it a taped? Okay. So maybe he's in San Juan and really getting in with the locals with that mustache. So as we all know, I'm trying to get mine ready for I need to tan a little more, as my lighting always makes me look like a pasty vampire. But if I get the tan and I can dye my mustache the color as McMahon, I think we'll be good to go. So
that's the goal. That's your goal for by Halloween next year. You gotta have the McMahon.
Yeah, maybe we'll come with that. If we get to 100,000, I'll be dressed as McMahon, and then we'll do the skewers in the head.
The skewer spot, yes. It's still a thing.
We can do
that's still a promise, right?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, we're only what are we at, like almost 4,000? So
4,000.
Yeah.
So we've gone up exponentially, in the last year since you put that on the table. So I love it. I love it. Well, yes, welcome in everybody. Welcome everybody who's listening live. Welcome everybody who's going to listen to this on demand. Glad you're here. Certainly appreciate it. We got a lot to talk about, and a pretty busy weekend, ahead of us in wrestling with Backlash coming up tomorrow from San Juan. We'll talk about that and preview that here. We're going to talk the news of the week, including some draft analysis and the AEW, All In ticket news for Wembley Stadium being as positive as it is. And then the flip side, a pretty a negative number as far as AEW Dynamite viewership goes. So we'll dig into that. And as well as your comments, your questions, your concerns, your rants, your raves, drop it in the chat. We'll keep an eye on that as the show goes on. As always, everybody can continue to dunk on me here too. If social media is not enough for you and you need to get your digs in, hey, I'm here for
What'd you do? I didn't see that.
So yesterday they announced that Cody Rhodes is going to be on Smackdown tonight. And so I was like, oh my God, the draft was Monday, folks. Like, how could you, I mean, and I think, I said that. I said, this is why I dislike the WWE Draft. And then in droves, it was like, droves upon droves. It was, the draft doesn't go into effect until Monday, Zack. And people are still dunking, even though that was pointed out to me now 24 hours ago. It was a mistake, folks. That's it. Let it go. But thanks, Zazan. I appreciate your concern. You don't have to feel bad though. I feel great. Tyler, is that a reason to dunk on poor old Zack? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you get someone will give me a grammar note in the live report occasionally on Twitter, and I don't respond because that just fuels it. So I don't know if you responded, but that's my tip to you here live on the air is not to respond. I'm not the most avid user of Twitter either, so that's a push and pull there. So
I pick and chose my spots to respond. But the responses ended conversation in this instance. So hey,
I would say that in general for you that it's a dumb rule for a dumb fake thing that a wrestling company does. So it's not really the end of the world. Right?
Well, and
to get it wrong when they probably laid it out on WWE.com when the draft officially started, as opposed to have it laid out, having RVD or someone explain it in the 5th round of the. I don't know what day he was, but his card was upside down.
We'll get to this too, but then so the dunking happened yesterday. Today, the big news coming out of the Backlash press conference, and maybe we could just fold this into a WWE Draft conversation right now. Was, hey, the new world title tournament is going to start on Raw and continue on SmackDown next week, which. I gotta wonder what the the situation is there with. I mean, it's a Raw title at this point. Roman Reigns is on SmackDown. So if somebody from SmackDown wins this tournament, do they go to Raw as the world champion? I mean, it's already, hanging on by a thread, Tyler. So I'll throw that to you. Want to get your thoughts on that. But just the draft in general. I mean, lackluster to me, 1,000%. I think that there's some potential like new matchups in there, but nothing groundbreaking either. So the whole thing is just kind of even though it did good business for WWE. There's no doubt about that. Numbers were looking really good on both those draft shows. So I don't know if I can argue with that, even though it was not good.
Yeah, I mean, it was a spectacle. It's around all the same stuff. I mean, WWE's cooking from a rating standpoint, obviously the antithesis of its number 2 in the market, AEW, which we'll talk about later as well. But yeah, I mean, I even DM'd you. I think you were behind watching it live, if I had to guess.
Yes.
So sorry, I spoiled the Street Profits to you. But last week on the show, I was like, the draft is stupid because you'll draft, Roman Reigns, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, and then the Street Profits will be the 4th pick for some reason. So it's not like a real draft where they would be, they would be a great 3rd round pickup that can start day 1 for you and become a Pro Bowler, right? That's the Street Profits from the NFL draft standpoint. But they're not a top 5 blue chip prospect that can, change your franchise, right?
No,
so
they definitely
are.
No.
And then literally they were in the 1st round after what was Roman, Bianca, and Street Profits were the first 3 picks, I think is how it went down. And then it was close to it, and I DM'd you, and you cannot believe it. That that was just a random poll, and obviously that was like the thing there. So, but yeah, the draft itself, no good.
I started laughing out loud when I saw that. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Although par for the course at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So like could I tell you where the non-Cody Rhodes, the non-Seth Rollins, the non-Becky Lynch, the non-Biancas, the non-Rheas, the non-Romans are? Could I tell you where Otis and Chad Gable are off the top of my head without looking at the draft? No, but that's kind of what the draft's always been, right? So I think it's totally fine. It's something that gets them good ratings. So, I couldn't argue against it in the boardroom. If I was arguing against doing it, I would just change it in a certain number of ways to make it a little more intriguing for people like us. But yeah, you move 5 people from each show to freshen them up and give them new matchups. And that's what it's for. So I'd rather it just be, hey, you're mainly on Raw, but you can pop over to the other show to freshen things up without doing anything, like Gunther going over to, at least Theory on SmackDown now. That's one. Okay, yeah. So they swapped those 2 mid-card titles, which is fine. But those are like the biggest things, and change those things up. But I'd rather them just have a 75% home and then they flex over when they need to get freshened up a little bit. As I think it was working really good, the last year without needing to put a fine line on things. So we'll see.
Unless you're going to stick to it. Unless you're really going to stick to it. If you're going to stick to it, okay, then I can get behind that. But we know that's not going to happen. So hello to Amos, hello to Sean, hello to Stephen. Thank you guys for joining us live. Interested to hear your comments on the draft, your thoughts. Overall, like I said, I think that there's some people landed in some good spots that are going to create some new matchups. Like Gunther going over to Raw, I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, you're going to have Cody's there for him to wrestle, Seth Rollins is there for him to wrestle. That's 2 feuds that I would like to see him in. I think Lashley gets freshened up going over to SmackDown. I think he's a guy you can credibly heat up for Roman Reigns at some point. Not somebody that really I feel like if you can get him to the level of over as a babyface that Drew was ahead of Clash at the Castle, you could get a sizable title program with him and Roman Reigns. Theory, I think, benefits from some new scenery on SmackDown. Same thing with Bianca Belair. I think she does as well. So I think from that perspective, at the top, it did what it was supposed to do in terms of shuffling things around. Why this has to be a focus of television, I don't know. But hey, it is what it is. So Tyler, were you up to speed on the news coming out of the press conference today as far as the world title goes? Because my head was spinning after hearing how they're going to go about doing this.
You're talking about the tournament stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you informed me, but yeah.
I just, okay. Here's where I'm at. You have this tournament that you want to like draw ratings, right? And not only do you want it to draw ratings, but you have to like have it be a good enough tournament with high level stars in the company so that the title is taken care of from like a perception point of view, like that people look at it as this is something that the tip top guys in the company want. And I also think you want to have some intrigue around who's going to win it. But if you have somebody coming from SmackDown that's going to challenge for that title at Night of Champions, and you have somebody coming from Raw and it's a Raw title, I don't know, man. Like, to me, that lifts a lot of the, I wonder who's going to win this, just right out of the air, unless, they are open to and say that if somebody from SmackDown wins it, they're, I guess, getting drafted back to Raw. Like, is that how you read that situation?
Yeah, I mean, it could be one of those things of it's a one-time only, then why draft someone over there? Because then it puts in the perspective of, okay, well, that person's definitely not winning it, but they might go to the finals. Then you have a kind of foregone conclusion world title match between those two. So yeah, I mean, it seems like an unforced error off the top just to pull some ratings because you have a SmackDown and a Raw person in the same tournament, so you can make justification. But again, you're just putting an invisible fence up between your two brands for essentially no reason, when you could have done all this and then done the brand split, after this at some point, once you establish who your Raw and your SmackDown champion are, for less of a term, and also switching the Raw champion to SmackDown and vice versa is also just interesting. They trade belts. I don't know. So I'd love them to keep their own belts and have the SmackDown on Raw and the Raw on SmackDown. I think that'd be hilarious. But
I mean, well, that's the thing too. Like, okay, how long is Rhea Ripley going to run around with the SmackDown championship on Raw? Like, yeah, hopefully not much longer. Like,
maybe they'll have a backstage video where they trade belts and they like stare each other down, and then that sets up a SummerSlam, neutral match between the two of them. So,
if they dot that I and hey, just have a segment like that, I think I'll give it a thumbs up just to have it. But yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. I don't like, I just remain steadfast in the opinion that the one world title really, I think, generated a lot of the interest that people have in WWE right now. I mean, you think about it, the ratings rebound and, the year-over-year viewership increases on these PLE events and the successful WrestleMania, it is directly corresponded to Roman Reigns unifying those titles and that thing being positioned as the sole tip-top goal of the men's division in the company. And I certainly can't sit here and say like, oh, everything's going to fall to pieces. I don't think that's true, but I think you had something good. And unless you're going to be super buttoned up with this new title, which there's already questions about how this thing's getting rolled out 30 minutes after the, after the rules were defined, it's like, why are you messing with something that isn't broken? And that's just kind of my feeling on this at this point.
Yeah, and as we talked about too, it calls into question if you are on team Sammy should win that title or team Cody should win that title to justify the long reign of Roman. You're not losing talking points by this whole belt coming into play, and Seth or Cody getting that title, being the number 2 champion, etc. Right? It would all work better with that babyface slaying Roman Reigns for the one and only title, and then you go from there. Because even if you did in reverse and you have Cody win that belt, and then there's a second belt, and then Roman gets it, like that works with that heel character too, for him to get another world title. Like as soon as he drops another one, and have people be like, "Oh my god, I cannot believe this guy's getting another world title." It just everything is such a, obviously there's wheels in motion here, but it is just they're in a good place financially, and creatively I think they're in a neutral place, given the last 6 months. But it's just these sort of things, like in 6 months, is it going to be a net positive for the company? I can't see a way that it would be. And that's, I think, why we're focusing on it so much here at the top, because it will be very played out when you have Baron Corbin taking on Cody Rhodes for the, for this new title. What's it even called? I'm spacing right now. The WWE Heavyweight, World Heavyweight. So when that's happening at, Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia, are you and I going to care particularly about that? I do not think so. As if it's, someone going against Sammy for the world title or someone going against Cody for the sole world title, I think would be a lot more potent of a story. So,
yeah. Yep. And then it's like, all right, there's SmackDown people that are going to be involved in this tournament. Like, is Roman throwing his name in the hat? I would assume not. Which already kind of hurt the title because it's like, all right, your top guy doesn't want it.
Yeah.
It's not that he can't have it. It's not the rule. He just doesn't want it. So, all kinds of things.
Yeah. And the contrarian in me and the person who loves chaos would be like, I would totally get down with that story if Roman entered and won that title and then had 3 belts walking around and just pissed everybody off. Like, that would be inspired to me. For them to do that, but I don't think that's the way they're going. So
you just want to watch the world burn, my friend.
Yeah,
want to watch the world burn. No, I mean, but seriously though, like you should. I mean, if you're Roman Reigns, and you're the tribal chief and you're the undisputed world champion, and all of a sudden you're not because they're bringing in a new belt that you can't compete for, but people from your brand are competing for it, like. Yeah, you probably should throw your weight around a little bit and get in that thing. We'll see. The tournament starts on Monday. We don't know who is in it yet, at least as far as I know as of right now. I don't have the WWE Twitter page or WWE.com up, so I don't know if they announced actual competitors for the tournament yet. I don't think they have, but it starts Monday and will continue next week on Smackdown, leading into the finals at Night of Champions. So, which
should be good TV. Hopefully they can get 15-minute matches on television. I think would be a good win for especially Raw, which can have a 3-minute match and then 57 minutes of non-wrestling, which can be pretty much a big slog from time to time. So
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for 2 things with this tournament. It's like, number one is that you have the biggest stars in the match. Like, I always got on AEW when they would have these battle royals for number 1 contenderships, and the top guys in the company were not in them ever. It just said right out of the gate that, this person's going to win the opportunity to wrestle for the title, but they're not really going to be in a title match or in a title match that's relevant. You really don't want to have that happen in this instance because you're trying to create this new belt from scratch and get people to care about it. I mean, this has to be Seth Rollins. This has to be Cody. This has to be Drew McIntyre. This has to be, Lashley.
Bobby Lashley. Yeah.
It's got to be your top guys, I think, that are going after this, that are in this tournament to make it kind of worth all the madness. And then, I think you might as well let them have 15 20-minute matches out there. I mean, what's the harm in that? I mean, I think it helps the championship, but it also shaves down what you need to put on the show too. So I think you're right on the money there.
But Azan will turn the TV off, it looks like. So pop up his he would like an 8 to 10 minute match. So
what is Azan? You only want 5-minute matches, 8-minute matches?
I said 8 to 10 at his next comment. So
8 minutes. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, I think, if we're talking, a Dana Brooks match, maybe. But if we're talking Seth and Drew McIntyre, if they don't touch, if they're not going to touch on pay-per-view for a year, I'd like them to get 15, 20 minutes to really make that a special thing. Not all the time, but WWE rarely does it. So it's special when they do it. And it can be a powerful tool for them to utilize.
This is the world title. I mean, if anything's going to go 15 on the show, it should be these matches to establish that belt. So cool. Let's pivot over to AEW for a bit here, and then we'll pivot back for a Backlash preview at the end of the show. Tyler, big, kind of polarizing news coming from AEW this week. On one hand, you have the All In show at Wembley Stadium. You have a pre-sale that does upwards of, I think, 45,000 tickets sold. You've got the general on sale today. And the last I checked, WrestleTix had them estimated to be at about 60,000 tickets sold for the event, and they had just opened a couple hours ago, opened up on sale for all the upper bowl seats. Again, this according to WrestleTix. That's tremendous. I mean, you could not have asked for obviously a better on sale for a first time into a market. They made a big deal about this. They waited, I think, for the opportune moment. They picked a big stadium, and they really tried to reach big for this show, and it's paying off. I mean, 60,000 tickets, that without a single match announced, you're already at a win at that point, in my eyes. I mean, you're playing with the house money at this point. And so, I mean, Tony Khan's got to be sitting back very, very happy about this. It's a win for him. It's a win for the company and the AEW brand, I think too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, do you remember what we talked, was it last week, where I think I asked like they had to hit, right, to be a success? Was it like, did we decide on like 40 or 50 as 50, like the 50? Yeah.
That was like the end number. That was like the end number. Like, right?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to like get out there, put my neck out there, but I think where they are is better than what I thought they were going to do. But I certainly thought 50 was like a no-brainer ability to do it, just because they haven't been to that whole market of, that's like never being in the Northeast for AEW, right? Would be similar buku results. And, so yeah, it's great. And to say it on TV and put all that stuff over, I mean, if you want to do the comparisons that we have done to WCW and the kind of creative trajectory that seems similar in recent weeks. But WCW never did anything like this in a big outdoor stadium. Obviously wrestling was different in the 90s from what the scope was and what the potential for that business was. It's different than it is today. So, but yeah, it's a big win. I would like some, reassurance that it will be televised in some way, shape, or form. And I still cannot believe they're going to try and do a pay-per-view the next weekend. So all that is, it's the AEW of it all, isn't it? Everyone here, I would assume, even if your AEW is not your favorite of the two brands, it's everyone can see how the last 2 years it's beneficial to have two major brands in wrestling to make everything else better around it. And this is good for that front, but it's the good business. I think Collision is good for the dollars and cents, but it's not good for long-term health of the company. And this feels, trying to do two major shows in back-to-back weekends doesn't seem like a good idea either. But we'll see. But yeah, I think it's tremendous news. It's very exciting. And I didn't do the math, but like, do you remember what the WrestleMania like gate was? I know it's 2 nights with a similar amount of people.
I don't remember what the gate was. I think it was a record, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like 6 million, when you do the math, is like, obviously we all saw the ticket mapping, and AEW's always been more affordable, especially for bigger shows than WWE has been. But, I think they priced competitively, but 6 million felt a little low to me for 50,000 tickets off the top of the head. But, there's probably a bunch of, $45 tickets moving, which is what you need to do. So, or pounds. So it's like 5.4 pounds. Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like the two companies are like at a different scale, like AW, whatever that gate is, if it's 6 million or whatever, it's $6, that's the biggest gate by far, I'd imagine. Right. Like for that company. So,
for sure.
That's a matter of perspective there. I'm reading some stuff in the chat here, and I think everybody agrees, that it's a big win. Sean jumping in with a little bit of cold water. It's the first show there. It's the only reason why. It doesn't mean the promotion's hot. It doesn't mean that, for sure not. And AEW has consistently like drawn well in their first run of a market. I mean, across the country and in Canada. That's not a reason, I don't think, to get down on the news, though. I mean, I still think it's strong, strong news for the company and a kind of justification for putting on a big show like that. Tyler, with the news that they've sold, let's just call it 60,000 tickets right now, no match announced, and the pay-per-view coming up the weekend after that. I would imagine that All In is probably going to have something to do with the new Max streaming service at this point. To me, it doesn't make any sense if it's going to be on traditional pay-per-view to not announce that at this point. And if it's not going to be available at all, to not announce that either. So this tells me that like it's part of like a bigger kind of announcement that they just can't reveal at this point in time. So I'd be putting my money on some sort of Warner streaming service for this show. All those things considered, I mean, what kind of weaponry, so to speak, in terms of matches do you break out for this show, knowing that you've already sold it pretty much, and you have a pay-per-view, 6 days after it? I mean, how do you weigh the pros and cons for trotting out Kenny Omega versus CM Punk for this match? I mean, I'm spitballing, I'm not breaking any news here, but like a huge match like that for this show that's pretty much taken care of from a business perspective, as opposed to All Out, which you're going to need to, get people to pay $50 a pop for.
Yeah, and on your previous statement, I mean, you saw Dark Elevation, right? You saw that information.
Yes.
That.
Gracious.
Well, yeah. So those are off YouTube for those that don't know, because part of the rumored Collision deal is that all AEW content has to be on Warner Brothers Discovery supported networks, essentially. So I think that would dovetail nicely into your theory there, Zach, about it being on the Max service. And that feels more like, not to get into the weeds on this, but Discovery Plus and then HBO Max. This definitely feels wrestling way more fits in with the reality TV show. If you're in the boardroom of Warner Brothers Discovery, it feels more like a Discovery property than a HBO property, right? So now them being lighted together into Max, I can see that now being something that got the green light to be on the platform on a more regular basis and not being an issue between the two companies. So, but on the matches, yeah, I mean, it's sold there. Like it's so interesting. Like I would almost try and do like a double feature of that Punk story between the Elite, because presumably it's going to be at the Wintrust Arena. Is that what it's called now? In whatever that.
Although there's rumors that it's going to be at the United Center too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to sell at Wembley the week before, I think you better be in the United Center. Or who can try? I don't know if you try and do Soldier Field, but someone might tear an ACL walking out to the stage on that grass. But,
ouch! That's a low blow. That's a low blow to us Bears fans over here.
Well, you watch it every weekend. So, yeah. So if you think CM Punk's going to get cheered in Chicago, maybe he'll get booed in the UK. One would presume. We'll have to ask Stephanie. I think Stephanie's going to be cheering for CM Punk, no matter what. But if you did like a little bit of that Bret Hart in the US and Canada from the late 90s in the hot period of WWF right before it blew up, I think that'd be an interesting way to book it. So that's there, because you got to. I don't know, what's the best way to do that? Do you do like a best of 3 series between the two teams? Like one's on Dynamite, one's at All In, one's at the final one's at All Out. Would those returns be diminishing after a period of time? One would think so, but and I don't know who had the first thing. Wade was the first one I heard float the Sting retirement match against MJF. Like that's super juicy to me. There's lots of
sense.
Yeah, lots of interesting things you can do. You probably have an Ospreay match. You probably have a Zack Sabre Jr. match. All that sort of stuff. A big match for Jay White would be fantastic. Presumably, if Adam Cole's going to go against MJF the next weekend for the title, that feels like we're headed in that direction. If Cole can remain, all good to go. Him getting a big win against maybe someone outside the company. If you can get if Ibushi's in by that time, whatever. There's a million things you can do, but some spectacle matches that are there. Obviously, if Drew, he hasn't re-signed as of yet, right? I mean, he'd be a huge draw at Wembley. You could build basically a co-main event around him and his debut. So there's lots they can do, but having those sort of more spectacle, extreme house show matches versus like the continuality of AEW that I think your friend, you've done shows with Will Washington, is now in charge of creating that lore and maintaining that timeline. That sort of stuff, like All Out feels like the timeline, and this feels like a pocket universe from a booking perspective. So I think that can work. But yeah, there you go.
That's good stuff. I mean, they really have to walk a fine line. I mean, because you definitely don't want to make this show. You don't want to phone it in because you've already sold 60,000 tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's airing on the Max platform, of course, I think if that's the case, they're going to put a whole bunch of juice behind it to make sure that thing goes.
Goldberg too, right? That he's rumored to be for big money matches. Him
Goldberg
and
Wardlow. Yeah, the biggest match that AEW can do, according to.
I'm for that. So
yes. So yeah, they can't they can't phone it in if that's the case. They're gonna have to make some decisions. But all in all, I mean, it's a good sign for them as far as that goes. And I think it's going to look great. I mean, that stadium with 60,000 people is going to be awesome, and it's going to be the biggest show that a lot of these guys have ever worked. Aside from the WWE guys, like I don't know that even Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. I don't know if they've worked in front of 60,000 people, even at the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah,
so
probably not. That's probably more 45, 50.
Yeah. So I mean, this is going to be a big show. On the flip side, Tyler. You had a Dynamite this week that runs polar and opposite to the momentum that you'd think the company would have with the announcement of selling 60,000 seats in Wembley Stadium. The show to me was, disjointed and not all that interesting. I mean, that's kind of the best way that I can describe it. It's just the matches are there and they're okay. The angles are there and they're all right. But there's really zero investment still on my part in the stories that they're telling. Even like Blackpool Combat Club against the Elite. Like, it's solid. It's a cool story and it's a cool match. But you don't have like the character investment in that because you have Blackpool Combat Club cutting babyface promos. I mean, I love that promo, great promo, but I don't think it served the story or the match well at all because you're just nodding along, going, "Yeah, go get him, Bryan Danielson. That's great. You're just great." And you don't want that if you're going to go into a match with a team like the Elite that you want as baby faces. The four pillars. This was probably the best night for that show or that angle, but it's still, a fatal four-way main event for the title on one of the 4 pay-per-views of the year. And to me, it's got a main eventer in MJF, 2 upper mid-carders in Jungle Boy and Darby Allin, and then Sammy Guevara. Like, that's not like top level, world title challengers. And they're going to try to make them feel that way. But the bottom line is they're not that at this point in time. And so challenging on one of the 4 pay-per-views of the year, just to me is not acceptable. Continuing on, the rating comes in and it's low. The first sub 800,000 in total viewership over for the year. And I think we reported at PWTorch.com that the demo rating held up nicely, but the total viewership took a really, really big hit, 10%, I believe, year over year. So something's just not right, and they hung around the low to mid 800,000s for a few weeks there, and none of those shows I think had anything on them that really would make you go, okay, like, we're going to get some people back here because that was excellent. That just wasn't there. And now we have a drop off again. So I don't want to say, Tyler, that this is the new like water level for Dynamite, but there's a batch of people who decided, hey, I'm not watching, anymore. And I think that has a lot to do with just the continuity of the show, both storyline and from a character perspective.
Yeah.
So
and
or don't.
I mean, and the one thing, to not talk you off the ledge is that, you see that Smackdown number, what it did, like 2.4 million, somewhere in that range. Obviously, it's on Fox, different story, but that's also competing with the same NBA and NHL playoffs that someone that would maybe defend the lower number by AEW is going up against. So, that's not, that's apples to apples, not apples to oranges on those comparisons of wrestling versus some other sports property. So that's there. I think it's just like you said, it's not hot right now. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have people in my life that were devout watchers of AEW. This is anecdotal here, so let's not convey that this is 300,000 people sitting out there. But they were about it, and they haven't watched for a majority of this calendar year because it's just not a hot product to them. And they, I think, are kind of waiting for me to let them know, hey, it's picking back up. It's pretty good. You should really get back in on it. Yeah. But I'm not going to stake my rep with them about wrestling to be like, oh, you got to Wardlow, man. He's squashing people. It's crazy. There's also battle royals with a bunch of people you don't care about. It's awesome. You got to come back and check this out. So, I just think it's there. It's just if it dips below 650, 600, I think it's DEFCON 2 situation, not DEFCON 1, but it's in a real bad spot if that's a week over week thing. I think next week should be a pretty good number. Kenny and Moxley in the cage is a good draw. That's the one thing of Dynamite has, for the whole life of the company, has felt like the biggest draws are on that show, and then the pay-per-views are more ensemble. Hey, here's a bunch of really good matches, but not that one or two matches. It's the opposite of the WWE model of here's kind of a 3-hour variety show of the same 15 people you see week in and week out, but these pay-per-views are something you really got to see because something tremendous is going to happen in the main one or two matches. And it's just obviously the flip side for AEW. And I think to go off of that course has hurt Dynamite to be here's some ho-hum weeks and we're going to save some good content for the pay-per-view. And then it's oh, well, that hasn't worked for us in the intermediate. And I think that's an interesting viewpoint. And, we'll see. But yeah, just Dynamite has not felt must watch, and not that Raw or SmackDown feel must watch for the entire length of each show. But that's got the 38 years of built-in fan base and people growing up watching it, and it's part of their routine. And AEW just doesn't have that benefit, so you got to continually have hot shows to produce good numbers.
Yeah, and I think even if you're watching Raw, right, and you are a fan of Monday Night Raw, and you're debating whether or not to watch it, and you decide to watch it, it may not be a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's not the best storyline in the world or the best match in the world, but you're gonna see Cody Rhodes in a big time way, right? That's gonna happen. You're gonna see the bloodline in some type of big time story. You know what you're looking for, or what you're going to get in some capacity. I wonder about AEW and Dynamite, the strategy of, hey, okay, we have such a big roster that we really don't have to build these shows around anybody in particular, because our roster and everybody loves everybody and everybody's great. And it's I look at FTR, for example, and I wrote about this on PWTorch.com this week. It's they had the big title win how many weeks ago? 3-4 weeks ago, maybe? 4,
I think. Yeah.
And they've been non-existent on the show since then. Maybe here and there in a backstage vignette or something like that. But if you want to frame those guys as a big deal and get people invested in them to watch every week, they have to be on the show. And that doesn't mean you have to put them in the main event every week. And it doesn't mean that, you want to expose them so much that they're overexposed. But there's certainly an element of, hey, I'm tuning in to watch Dynamite. I think you want to have a group of people that are going to be on that show. It'd be like watching your favorite drama and having no idea if some of your favorite characters are going to be on it on a regular basis. And eventually you just be I'll forget it. I'm done. And I'm not saying overexpose these guys, but I'm saying you can't have FTR on the show winning the title in grand fashion and then not have them on in any reasonable and impactful way for 5 weeks afterwards and expect people to still be invested in them the next time you want to promote them on the show. Just can't happen that way. And so to me, that's an area in which I think AEW can improve, and the two shows may force that a little bit, which is a benefit, I think, of having both shows if you can maintain some kind of continuity. But it's tough because you never know who you're going to see. Like Hook is another one. Like he's a guy that they try to like kind of heat up at different points and make it a big deal when he wrestles, and he's on for 3-4 weeks for like short kind of stories with Stokely Hathaway, and then you don't see him again for weeks on end. How can you develop a continued investment in that guy if he's not on the show?
Yeah, I mean, if let's say if you could like turn your brain off except for the last let's say the last month of Dynamite, right? Not Rampage, Dynamite, the flagship program of AEW, right? Like if you were talking about Fireside Chat, it would be me and you, right? With the occasional, Brian and Stephanie have both stepped in from time to time and filled in for both of us. But me and you, like everyone watching, thank you for watching. You can expect to see Tyler and Zack every week on Fireside Chat. We are the people that present the show, right? So if you were to do that with Dynamite the last month, who are like the 5 biggest stars? If you were to ask some random person that only watch the 8 hours of content, right? It's Orange Cassidy is probably your number 1 star from a screen time. Then MJF, Darby, Sammy, Jungle Boy, and then Saraya, maybe. I'm trying to think who's
Outcast.
From the Brit, from the women, probably Brit, and then who else? Butcher and Blade are probably. You think they're probably pretty big guys because you've seen them a lot, get a lot of spots. I mean, that's the problem. It's not, and maybe Adam Cole, Jericho, right? That would be the positive side, but it's not Kenny Omega. It's not Jon Moxley. It's not Bryan Danielson. It's not your women's champion. It's not your tag team champions. It's not Jay White, the person you just signed. It's just It's a great analysis. Like it's not those guys. And to Azan's point here, it's out. Are you saying Tony should force people to work more? I mean, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, they don't do house shows, right? I mean, this is not WWE where you're on the road 5 days a week. Like that's
right. And I think there is like a ruthless kind of side to the business where, you got to get them on TV. And it's not like, oh, they should like work hurt or they should like work, when they're not healthy. It's nothing like that. It's just, you need your top guys on the show to draw an audience. And I don't think you want, I think in theory, a show that you can interchange everybody is great. But when you really break that down, as I always say, it's like Chicago Bears quarterbacks. If you think you have more than one, you don't have any. And that's kind of how this is too. It's like if you think you have stars that everybody can interchange and be in all these spots, you don't have top stars because that's not how top stars are treated. And I think it's an issue, with what the company's doing right now.
And the chat's right. I think Jeff Jarrett would probably make that list too if you took the last month. He's been on, I think, every episode.
Jeff, right.
So
Jeff Jarrett, and I mean, that guy gets some of the biggest reactions on the show. Period. Like,
so I would say that's a general problem for a long-term trajectory of a company. Even though I've liked the Jeff Jarrett character, didn't love the segment this week, but it is what it is. But I think that's a problem. Orange Cassidy, without a doubt, would be you would think he's the world champion the way he's featured, which is great. I mean, I enjoy Orange Cassidy. I think he's on a great run. I think he's great for television. He's a great television champion. But from the featuring standpoint, it is like out of control that you can. Like I want, not that I want Kenny Omega to work every week, but I want Kenny Omega to be on TV at a similar clip that Orange Cassidy is used in, as just one example, right? And there's very creative ways to get him on the screen, and whether he wants to or not is like part of the job of owning a wrestling company. So
yes, it is, and if he doesn't want to, that's the part, Azan, where I would say, well, yeah, you do. Tony has to flex his muscle as the owner of the company and go, well, okay, I know you don't want to, but I didn't want to do a lot of like my day job this week, but I had to do it.
Yeah, I feel like this is why CM Punk's coming back, because I'm tired of dealing with you. This is just guessing, right? If that was an issue, I'd be like, yeah, this is why CM Punk's coming back. I'm just letting you know. Thanks for the video promo.
Thanks for proving my point
from your house. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so yeah, you're absolutely on the money with that. How do you think, or were you high on the Four Pillars segments this week? Like, again, it's a low bar, but I think it was the best that they've done to this point with that story. And I say that because I liked that, like, by the end of it, you had all the Four Pillars on different pages, right? It was like you had Sammy and MJF together when the show started. By the end, they were button heads. And then obviously they have issues with Jungle Boy and Darby Allin. And by the end, Jungle Boy and Darby Allin, they coexisted long enough to get their title shots. And now they can go back to kind of disliking one another. So, I mean, I think they landed in a fine spot. But as I said at the top, my issue is just this does not feel like a Double or Nothing championship main event to me.
Yeah, I would say I was a little more down on it than you. I didn't think it was terrible by any stretch, but there are a couple really good spots and a couple really bad spots, like Darby coming in and being like, "Why was MJF in here? I don't trust you now." All of a sudden, like, that's dumb. But and then like Sammy figuring it out and then not being friends before the match started was better than it being like, "Oh, you accidentally kicked me in the head." So that's a win, right?
Yes,
that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So it was mixed. I mean, the whole thing's been mixed for me, and I think Sammy is a negative almost all the time in a main event thing. I think Perry's pretty much a nothing burger on the whole thing. Like, you could replace him with any other babyface. I think Jericho in 1996 would fit in perfectly with Jack Perry where he is currently. So that's not to say I'm selling my Jack Perry stock at the moment, but he is a zero-dimensional babyface that I don't really know what he stands for by himself, right? And hopefully he can overcome that. But that hasn't been solved here. And him just saying, like, I'm going to be a champion is, like, not doing it for me. And then Darby's been, fine. And I do think MJF overall has been – he's like when, let's say you have a dominant sports team and some bottom-feeding team comes in and your team just hangs around and barely beats them at the end. You've kind of played to the level of your competition. It feels like that's kind of where MJF is with this whole feud, is that he's kind of getting back on his lower what's the word I'm looking for? Just like what he wants to do, and he's like having a great time. That for sure. He actually likes these guys is my guess, and they said it on air. But he's having fun, like being kind of this heel and writing these segments and setting all this stuff up. But is it what he should be doing as world champion? I don't know. It's what he should be doing when he's not world champion. Like, he should be teaming up with Sammy and having a big tag match against these guys as what he's doing after that. So I think it's lowered him from where he was against Danielson, which is one of the best stories told in AEW history. To then go to this is not great, but he's MJF and he can pivot and he can make things interesting from one week to the other. So I'm not too worried about that, but I think in the aggregate, it has not been beneficial to him and his character to be with these guys so long. There probably should have been someone challenging him until this week, and then you kind of set up the story, because it's definitely dragging for me. So I know that sounds super critical, but I just think it's been like totally okay of a story and not a disaster, not like a super good story overall.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's fair. And I think you're right. Like yeah, it's not great for MJF, and he's talented enough. Obviously, he's going to make it work to some extent. But it's the opportunity cost, though, of, hey, look, if on average your champion is a champion for a year, let's say, I don't know what it is in AEW, you get 4 big title matches, and so like this is one of them, and I don't think people are going to be shelling out $50 to see how this turns out. I just don't see that at this point, because I think everybody knows how it's going to turn out. I don't foresee Darby or Sammy or Jungle Boy winning this. I think you know how it's gonna. I think you know how this is gonna go. And that's not a great place to be before 3 weeks before pay-per-view is supposed to happen.
Yeah, and there's like the one thing to hash out here that I don't think I've heard talked about, but is this going to be a traditional 4-way match where the first pinfall wins, or is the MJF character going to be so anxious about that and conspiratorial about that to try and make this like an elimination match to make it a little more interesting? So I think that's a potential story that I would find interesting to see if MJF can weasel his way into that sort of match as opposed to one pinfall wins. So we'll see.
I would agree. I think that's definitely better. That's definitely better. But you got to wonder, like they're saying on the air that this is going to be the main event. Man, I don't know about that. I mean, you really got to pack the undercard here if that's going to be your main event. I mean, you're going to have some kind of BCC elite thing. But
Jericho Cole, and something with the outsiders. Yeah, Jamie and Ruby.
Yeah, or I mean, they just might do the six-woman tag.
Yeah,
like Sheeta, Britt, and Jamie again. But then again, it's like you don't have a women's title match on one of the 4 pay-per-views a year. Like I don't know about that. Yeah. Anything else on Dynamite this week, man? That irked you, or was there anything that you liked that you thought was like?
I mean, so the beginning match I thought was like a fine TV match. It kind of reminded me of early days of Dynamite. It was like the whatever, the weird team of Orange Cassidy and Bandito and Cole and Strong taking on JAS guys. Like that was a fun throwback to what Dynamite was literally every week for like a year. Of just like 8 guys going crazy and put it on the line. And then, the main event was very sports entertainment-tastic, but I think that was fine and got to where we were. But yeah, I mean, the middle was pretty light on that show. And I already made passing comments, but if there's not a battle royal for a year and a half on TV, I think that would be a smart decision because that might, and especially it ended right at 9:00, I think, or 8:58. Yeah. Eastern time, like
at the end of the first hour.
I would guess that battle royal is what killed the rating. If you want to look like very in the weeds on that, and people didn't come back because it was bad, and they've been bad. Like, when's the last good battle royal that AEW's had? Like, look out for that. And then Wardlow. I mean, I'm on my soapbox. I'm probably the most anti-Wardlow, the character guy. Seems like a great human being, but just the like. It's like I think it's booked to spite me personally. I know that's like I don't actually think that, but like it is unbelievable that it's like in the last 2 weeks they haven't even mentioned the guy's name. Like I think I have to put like enhancement talent or jobber. Like I just change it up, and it's like I type out when I see Wardlow come out. Just so if everyone reads my report, I do it the same way. And I put powerbomb pin Wardlow match is my analysis. Like I type that before he even like the bell rings. So it's just like, why are people sticking around to watch that? And then you have a promo that's not a promo with Cage and, Kane Luchasaurus coming out and just staring him down. And so.
Well, and then it doesn't.
I know.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's just like, I know it's like a small thing on the show, but like, it is like still one of your 17 titles that you deem to be important. And someone who I think we all had a lot of potential in Wardlow this time a year ago when he's going against MJF before all that stuff happened. And to literally have no growth in a character like that you give so much TV time to is just one of the many reasons, why it's there. And I don't have anything against Wardlow, but like, I don't want to see him on my TV screen if he's going to do this on a continual basis. I can name many other wrestlers if I look at the roster off the top, and be like, I'd rather see Keith Lee. I'd rather see Swerve Strickland. I'd rather see, whoever. I'd rather see the Lucha Brothers doing stuff. I'd rather see Commander running some ropes. At least that's exciting. Like, there's many guys in that middle card. If Andrade's ever coming back, if Miro would ever come back, like, I know that's probably not going to happen to any of those two, but there's just like a lot of talent. I'd rather see Jay White have meaningful matches than Wardlow being out to get TV time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
really so we've been on and we've been on that, and that's more here, right? Juice and Ricky Starks, like that's killed Ricky Starks as well because like no one cares about that. It's like I'd rather see Ricky doing anything better than that. If Ricky was out there destroying people I'd be more down with that. Like, at least I don't mind a squash match. Just like, let's rotate who's getting the squash matches to look powerful and look like contenders.
Right. Well, and also in Wardlow, again, put him in something. Get him into something that matters. If it's going to be like, I think that could use a little more straightforwardness. You don't need like the weird tease of is Christian out there to get Luchasaurus the match or whatever. Just have the heel Christian Cage go up against Wardlow. Beat him up, attack him from behind. Luchasaurus is the heavy. You go from there. You get a nice little TNT program there and a good match for Wardlow that Christian can work him through. Could be one of his longer matches that he has. And you have him win. And then, I mean, boom. It's not, you don't have to have the swerve of like, oh, I'm out here for Luchasaurus, except I'm really out here for me. Ooh. Like, just do it. Just, I don't, the same thing with the Sheeta swerve. It's like, just have her run out there and make a save as a babyface. Like, you don't, like, why the swerve there? Like, I think you get a better investment if you just let fans, yes, all right, great, Sheeta's here. 3-on-3. I love it. Like, what the heck was that?
It reminds me, like, it's booked like an indie show. It's booked like someone you haven't seen for a long time, like maybe in that city. And they like come out and you actually don't know their affiliation within the promotion because you're probably not watching every indie promotion show.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, this person, forget, were they a good guy or bad guy? Oh, they're out here. They must be a bad guy. And then they turn like, oh, cool. They're with the good guys. I remember liking that person. Let's go.
Yes.
It's booked like that as opposed to, and honestly, the talent is sometimes booked like that. Like, we haven't seen it in months. It's like, yeah, we're not going to see her for months after this probably because that's the way Sheeta is booked.
Right.
So it's just all those compounding issues stacking. And still, I enjoy watching the show. I know we're critical of it here, but as I say every week, but like there's like the highs are not as high and the lows are getting a little lower. It's kind of where I am on it.
Good way
on a week in, week out basis.
Good way to frame it. Well, look, we'll still watch it. I know there's some chat in here about like watching a show you don't like. And look, it's like I equate it to watching like a football team that might be bad. And I know a lot about that. Lots. You can still watch and hope things get better as a fan. And, we're here to analyze the good. We're here to analyze the bad. And if it's bad on a regular basis, like that's where the commentary is going to be. And if it's good, it's going to be there too. And that's how we roll on this show. Let's wrap up with Backlash, Tyler. We got Backlash tomorrow night on Peacock from Puerto Rico. And like, I don't know if this is going to be the main event, but it's certainly one of the big matches on the show. Brock Lesnar against Cody. To me, a good, solid feud for Cody Rhodes coming out of a WrestleMania loss that he is not bad at 1,000 in terms of like framing that loss the right way. But I don't think when you listen to his crowd reaction and like, I don't think fans are any less behind him now than they were at WrestleMania. And I think Brock Lesnar has a lot to do with that as he's in, the top men's program in the company on this show. I think the build has been pretty straightforward, like, and pretty simple. And so like, I like it. I think they've got a big mountain for Cody to climb in Brock. And like, I'm excited to see what they do. I think Cody wins. I think he's got to absolutely 100% win. Azan, could not agree. Can't agree with you on this one. I don't think you can beat Cody here.
Yeah, I think Brock is Teflon. He could lose. He could be Chris Jericho, basically, for WWE. I think that would be a good transition. I don't know if we need the Lesnar Appreciation Society, but, Otis and Chad Gable in that group as Menard and Angelo Parker, I think would be a nice comp. So that'd be interesting if they pulled, and then like who would be Hager, and then who would be Danielson would definitely be like Austin Theory, right? I mean, Garcia would definitely be Austin Theory or someone like that. Theory. Or you do the brothers, the Creed brothers, they could maybe come up and be part of that group. They could.
I'd like to see like
people with
Corbin as Brock's second.
Cool. Yeah, he can be the guy with the hat.
The hat,
But instead of hat, he can be like, I like this bow tie or something stupid. So there's our fantasy booking. Sorry, we're wasting our time on that. But for the Lesnar Appreciation Society. But my question to you before I answer that is, if you're Triple H, what are you putting on last on the show?
This match for sure.
This match?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I know that you could put Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest on last, and I think it could fit there on the show itself. But I still think you have like a company to run, and you have a show to do on Monday, and so like you have to position Cody as a main eventer. Like I think you really have to do that. Like whether he's going to win the world title or not, or he's going to beat Roman and be on the same show as Roman, the perception has to be that Cody's a main eventer. And so, yeah, in the moment, it might be cool to put Damian Priest against Bad Bunny in the main event, but I don't think long term. I don't think it works. So yeah, I'd be putting this on last.
Yeah, it's hard. It just depends like where you're going to put the other match for that live crowd, because you're in Puerto Rico and there's no bigger star than Bad Bunny in that arena.
No, I know.
Do you want to go after him? Is kind of my question. If you're Cody Rhodes, if you're Brock Lesnar, I think you're confident enough that you can, and that people will deem it to be a big deal. So maybe but you can't open with Bad Bunny either. So it's one of those things. Like, but also
I think I would do Bad Bunny like third from the top. I think I would do like that match, and then after that I would do the 6-man with like Cody or Sammy and Kevin. Like I think that they could like keep the crowd interested, but not like prevent like the big drop off in like momentum, and then go right to the main event. I think that's how I would do.
Yeah, because it's like what is your better go home with the little WWE logo on the bottom? Is it Cody victorious over Brock Lesnar, or is it Dom? Is it Dominic? Is it Rey Mysterio and the rest of LWO helping Bad Bunny defeat Priest and Balor and Dominic Mysterio, all that sort of stuff? Because it's going to come down to that at the end. That Escobar is going to come out and help him, and do you want to get those guys over in a way to end the show and have them get the rub of Bad Bunny, or do you want Cody? I think you have the right decision from a running a company standpoint. I think it's just going to be very tough, and you want to maintain that Bad Bunny relationship. Does he expect to be in the main event? I don't know. He seems to actually like and respect wrestling, so maybe he'd be like, no, you can't. You got to put Cody in the main event. Like he seems like a smart guy in the business. So
yeah. Well, and also like I just think that there's it's still a celebrity match, and Damian Priest isn't like Logan Paul against Roman Reigns, like it's Damian Priest. Like this is a mid-card match. I mean, except for the fact that Bad Bunny's in Puerto Rico, which is a big deal.
Yeah. So for Zack, when he watches this, because he's not with us live today, if it was Dominic Mysterio and Bad Bunny, does that change your answer on what should main event? Okay, I don't know. It does for me a little bit. I think Dominic's more of a guy 10 years from now than Damian Priest is, right? So
yes. I mean, like I think I would think about it, but I still think the end game is still for me. It's like you got to have Cody in the main event of these shows. So
I think so too. So I think you're right. But yeah, on that answer, I think Cody has to win here. I think it'd be outrageously strange if he lost to Lesnar clean, because Cody has not lost clean in WWE, right? Since it's been back. So that's a pretty good story to maintain. And I think Lesnar doing it doesn't net you anything. It just makes it more muddled with the Roman loss. So, and that there's stuff to overcome if he loses. But I think to a point that the crowd in general would lose interest in that chase more so than if he beats Lesnar and then continues the chase towards Roman after this. So
yeah, and I think a Cody loss is coming in this tournament also. Like I just don't see him being in it. So I think like you're going to get to his next program like through this tournament somehow. And so you can do the loss there, but he needs this win. I mean, he really needs this win. And Brock's going to be gone. I don't think he's going to be sticking around much after Night of Champions. So like, unless they're going to do some kind of rematch there, I don't know. But I think he needs to win this. What about the Priest Bad Bunny match? Like, I'm excited to see this match. The other week in Chicago, when Bad Bunny came out, it was like, damn, all right, people are like popping for that guy. So this is going to be like weapons match. I'm sure they're going to have some uber protected high spot for Bad Bunny, and Bad Bunny goes over, right? I mean, like, I don't think this is the Judgment Day prevails.
Correct. I mean, it's not even Finn Balor in the spot, right? Like, then it's
Right.
like, okay, are you really going to put Finn, Bad Bunny over Finn? So it makes total sense. It's going to be that thing at the end where it's Judgment Day and LWO facing off, and then they team up and take them all out, and the Bad Bunny hits his destroyer on Priest. If Priest can make that move work, but I think he can. I'm trying to think his ROH days. I think he pulled off destroyers there. So yeah. So I mean, and that him hitting that again, or another big move that is safe, putting maybe a frog splash through a table. Can he hit a Three Amigos, that sort of thing? All that sort of like luchador and type homage that he would like to do. Does Ray give him a mask at the end or something that he can like cherish and thank you, and that's like a big moment. So all that makes total sense and pops the crowd huge, and he's got to win. If not, I mean, that would be the ballsy choice, and I think Bad Bunny would understand, and that would make Damian Priest like way more elevated as a heel if they did decide to do that. So I would be here for it. I'm not the world's biggest Priest fan, like in the ring. He's also like 42, right? So, but if they want to do that, that'd be interesting. Keep the Judgment Day more interesting on Raw every week. So, I think Bad Bunny wins, no questions asked.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's keep it going. Rhea Ripley against Zelina Vega for the SmackDown Women's Championship. This, to me, this is another one of these situations where you had a huge win for Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, and to go from like Charlotte Flair to Zelina Vega as an opponent, it's another example of crown champions at WrestleMania not having anybody on the other side to work with. That's super compelling. Luckily, I think Rhea Ripley is on a run where it doesn't really matter who she works with at this point. I think she's clicking on all cylinders. She's got a character she's jives with that seems authentic, that people are behind or not behind, but like it's over. So luckily, I don't think it's going to matter that much, but man, it'd be a lot better for her on the show to have like a truly viable, threatening opponent that she could beat instead of dusting Zelina Vega. I mean, if this match goes longer than 5 minutes, like what are we doing here? I mean, Zelina Vega has been beyond irrelevant for months and months and months. And I hope that this match gets booked with that in mind. We don't need to see Rhea have a classic here like she did with Charlotte at WrestleMania. So, I mean, this is a layup. Rhea's going to win. To me, it's just going to be how the match goes down. And this should be as close to a squash as you can get without it being a squash.
Yeah, I agree. This is the problem with this type of show. And, the balance and the force, if you will, of having huge mega shows. And then you have to have like other shows that, before and after that are not as impressive of cards to kind of balance everything out, right? Not every show can be a huge, massive show. So that's why I like the booking of Cody and Brock, because it's not related to anything that happened at WrestleMania. It still feels like a big match. And the celebrity spot, like that, saving that instead of Bad Bunny having this match at WrestleMania to have it a couple weeks later in Puerto Rico, I think was smart booking. And the rest of the card is kind of a B pay-per-view show. And this is certainly one of them. I mean, Vega hasn't done anything since she got hired back on that I can even note besides having cool cosplay inspired costumes. So and it should be 5 minutes, 6 minutes tops, and should be pretty dominant by Rhea. I think that would be a good way to book it. So
all right, Seth Rollins against Omos. Seth says that he's the one that can have the best match with Omos. This match still feels out of left field. It still feels like completely ridiculous. They barely interacted on Raw Monday. I don't think they did at all. If you're wondering, is this actually on the card? I don't blame you, because it certainly doesn't feel that way. But it is on the card. Seth Rollins will wrestle Omos on this show. I don't know, Tyler. Like this barely deserves our time to analyze.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see if Seth can put his money where his mouth is and make this a 3-star match or whatever his goal for it is. So we'll see about that. And also, like in a Vince controlled era, this is like another Vince watch match because like if Seth is gonna win the new title and Vince is running the company, he's for sure losing this match to Almost, and then to give him the rub, and then Seth goes on a run. So like, look out! Like spoiler, dark horse win here. Like if Seth loses, like there's some Vinnie Mac behind the scenes pulling this.
Seth has like good momentum right now. And it doesn't matter whether it's the song, which I'm not a fan of. Like I always feel like that kind of overness can fizzle at any moment. Like ask the Acclaim. That type of thing doesn't stay hot forever, but it's over now. And one thing that Seth had that the Acclaim didn't is he's got equity, a lot of equity with the fans who've seen him work for a long time and want to see him win stuff and be good, and they want to cheer him. So he's on a nice run. I mean, I really think he is. And if Omos beats him and squashes that for no reason at all, yeah, then you really got to go, okay, Vince. Easy. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to see Seth win this en route to the big world championship win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. So I'm just telling you, like, if you see it,
don't be surprised.
Usually WWE is good for like one kind of out of left field match result per pay-per-view, it seems.
Oh yeah.
And that would be a big Vince move to me if that were to happen, because, to justify it like, oh, this doesn't really matter. He's going to win it anyway. So let's give this other guy a win. It's just such a Vince-ism. So we'll see.
All right. Bianca Belair, Raw Women's Championship against Io Sky. Belair is the Raw Women's Champion on SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean anything to you with this outcome?
No, I mean,
I guess I should
Rhea's
say. Like, is there a better chance that Io wins because she's on Raw, or is she on SmackDown too?
I don't know. We'd have to look it up because
the
damage control get?
My friend.
Yeah.
Where is damage control?
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't think Io would be the one to take it off of Bianca at this point. I mean, it's been over a year, so she's not the one to take it off of Bianca. I think that's got to be a bigger moment. That's got to be, Charlotte's been gone for a couple of weeks. That's a Charlotte coming back randomly on a SmackDown and winning a title the night she comes back move. So,
yeah. I joke about Io Sky. I'm with you though. Like Bianca has to win this. She's got a big match with Charlotte Flair now that they're both on SmackDown that they can have at some point. So I think you got it. Yeah, you keep it here. And then two more here before we wrap up. Austin Theory, Bobby Lashley, Bronson Reed for the U.S. title. I'm not sure about this one. To me, it's
I think if we both wrote the finish down on the piece of paper and then showed it at the same time, I think we would have the same finish, right?
I think so. Yeah. To me, it's. I mean,
like a Lashley move on Reed, and then Theory comes in and pins Reed, right?
Yeah, or the reverse, or like tsunami on Lashley, and Reed or Theory like rolls him out, pushes him out of the ring, pins pins Lashley, keeps the move over. Theory gets to win, but it's like that's the thing. I think that's how it's going to go. Like I don't know that I necessarily want to predict it that way, but like I don't love Austin Theory's title reign anymore. Like I think it was really solid at the beginning, but he hasn't found like that next gear to kind of take it to, and is really kind of flattened out in terms of really everything. Yeah, he's still good in the ring, I think, but from a character perspective, it's just like really, really flat. And it's tough to say, but I think some of that's on John Cena. Like I don't think that did anything to help Austin Theory like at all. Like when you look back on it, like it just really cooled him off in a big way. But like, if you want to salvage that at all, like you really can't take the title off him at this point. Like you got to repair him first, I think, before you do that. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be a very, a very compelling finish, but I think Theory takes it.
Yeah, and that's like a good note on the title reign here because you have Gunther, you've got Roman, you've got Bianca. Theory's kind of in that territory now. I mean, it's been what since 2022 he's had it, right? What do you get, December 22?
Yeah, I think so.
November, somewhere in that range. So, there's a lot of 6-month plus title reigns going on right now for singles belts, and who loses that first out of that group? Does Theory need to maintain that and not be the first one to lose in that group? I would contend probably so. Like Lashley beating Gunther, or is Lashley on SmackDown now? He's on SmackDown, right?
Lashley's on SmackDown, yeah.
Yeah, so never mind. But, someone beating like Gunther makes more sense to me than Gunther can go up and take on Seth for the title or something like that, right? So, But with, Theory, it's like, is he really taking on Roman? No, I mean, they're both heels too. So this is kind of the apex of his character for the next year or so, right? And him losing that, he's just going to go to something lower. So if you have big plans for him losing here is not helpful for him and his character.
Yeah, and I want to see Bronson Reed and Bobby Lashley just have a match. Like I've loved what they've done on Raw, like the 2 brawls and the matches that they had. I think they had some good chemistry together, and so they can transition out of this into their own match, whether it's on TV or a different pay-per-view. But
I'd like to see them wrestle in like Sumo Hall during like the G1, like the 5th night of the G1, just like obliterate each other too. But
Yes, I mean, Bronson. Bronson Reed's been impressive. I think since he's come up, he needs a little juice on the booking side, but All right, and then last but not least, and then one final question here: the Bloodline against Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Matt Riddle. What are you thinking? Where are you going? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like more. Man, I don't know. I mean, it feels like the right time to get the Riddle, that win. But Owens and Sammy, getting that win there makes sense, and it would be a continued, loss for that group for Jimmy and Jay not having the number of Kevin and Sammy. Obviously, one of those two taking the pin, and to like continue that story with the Bloodline. But does that? Is that good for any character? That's then still making the Bloodline the main characters in a loss, which is a very WWE thing to do, is to be the person that gets the rub positively from a TV time perspective after losing. And it feels like par for the course for Sammy and Kevin. And I would like for them to be away from this group unless Sammy's going to go against Roman for that title again at some point. But I would like them not to interact for a while after this. It's kind of where I am, because they're then just going to be the continued foil and the lesser of the two parties versus the Bloodline. But then who do they go up against next? I'm not quite sure. So that's kind of the issue with the Bloodline at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because like they're on different brands now. These the 3 teams, everybody involved is on different brands. So, on one hand, it's like, to me, it comes down to like, what is the Bloodline going to do next? Because the titles aren't on the line, right? So like you could have Riddle take the pin, and then that's it. Bloodline gets a win, and that's their attempt to get back in the good graces of Roman Reigns. You continue that story on SmackDown. That's one viable path. If they lose, you continue that storyline on SmackDown. But then like the Usos have lost like a lot in the last month or so. Like you had them losing at WrestleMania. Jimmy lost to Riddle just a week ago. Like it's like, is one more loss going to be what puts Roman over the edge? It already seems like he's kind of pushing the Usos aside, and so this is the only match on the show that I'm unsure about which direction they go. Like the other 7 matches or whatever it was, like I think are super definitive in terms of how that's going to be booked. This is the one that I don't know. And if I had to pick, I think they continue on the losing streak story for the Usos and Solo, just because that's the story they've been telling. So that's my guess, but I'm not confident in that guess. I think they can go either way, which is going to make this fun to watch, I think.
Yeah. Does this feel like the opener to you? Just from like the weight of this match, versus the other two we talked about.
Unless they're going to use it as like that buffer between Bad Bunny and Cody and Brock.
That'd be the AEW style, right? To have like the 3 matches there. So we'll see. I'm interested in that match layout because like Roman not in the main event is interesting as well. It's been a long time, a non-Royal Rumble since we've seen that. So, but we'll see. But I would go with the good guys on this one. But that might dictate too. Like you're not going to have the good guys win here, Bad Bunny win, and Cody win, right? That seems unlikely.
True
for the live crowd. So that's like the WWE of it all. And this would be the match that would make me be like, well, if one heel group's going to win, it's probably the Bloodline, and that's Solo something. And, Roman then, doesn't acknowledge Solo, but whatever the closest thing to acknowledging him is. And then that's like, hey, your brother got it done. You two didn't. You two haven't. Continue that story that way through a win, which I would prefer the Bloodline story to continue through a win, pinning Matt Riddle. And because, I think he had more of an upside with Vince controlled creative than a Triple H controlled creative. I think that's pretty obvious from where that went. And I think of everyone in that match, he's the most expendable from a creative standpoint. So have them, have Roman pin him and be done with it.
Definitely.
It'll be interesting.
Do you think that there's an avenue where we see Solo turn on the Usos?
I mean, if directed,
are they ready for that?
Yeah, I mean, if directed by Roman, I would say so. It feels like we're close, but it feels like we've been close to a lot of things in the storyline, and then they've extended out 6 months. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about this in the fall, and then maybe they feel like Solo creatively is more ready to be on his own and have more singles matches than he is currently, or it was 2 months ago. So I think it will happen.
Yeah,
but
I say that because it's like for so long, the storyline with the Bloodline has been Bloodline Sammy, and Bloodline Sammy Kevin. I mean, that's going back to November Survivor Series, where that's been like the essence of that story. On Monday, that gets broken up one way or the other, like for now, until they pivot on the brand split again. But so you're gonna need something for like that can breathe interest into the Bloodline, and they might be at the point where that it just needs to be themselves, and it's like Solo and Roman, the Usos, and then you have that happen. So I mean, because if it's not that, like who's there to take on that group? Like where do you go? So I think that also makes me buy my good guys pick, because you can just have Solo just snap at the end on behalf of Roman, and and then tell the story later that, hey, I was told that if we lose and it's one of you, like, yeah, I'm taking you out, like, and then now you're off to the races.
Yeah, and you could also have Bad Bunny lose and then kind of get his heat back, reverse heel wise, and beat up them, and then you set up him and Finn Balor for down the line, maybe SummerSlam, something like that. So that, and like the crowd can go home happy seeing their guy, standing tall in the middle of the ring. But definitely not all 3 baby faces in those key 3 matches are going to win. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. I'm bad at guessing WWE matches historically. So
we're good on the 7 here. No, I'm certain. I'm certain we're going to go at least 7 to 8 for sure. Guys, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening live. We had some first timers and Mark, and everybody else is on. Steven, Dr. Ross made an appearance, Sean, Amos, and everybody else who joined us live. Really appreciate it. We're live every week with the flagship edition of the Fireside Chat. Some scheduling issues may make this a permanent thing. More on that. Some scheduling issues may change our time a bit. Tyler and I need to discuss that off the air in a production meeting. But we're going to work hard to bring some sort of live Torchcast tomorrow during Backlash. We're not sure of the details. We'll figure that out and see if we can make that work. If we do, we'll let you know. Hopefully you can be there for it. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the little notification button so you know for sure when we're live, and keep it locked here to the channel. And we certainly appreciate it. Tyler, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a happy Friday, everybody. Enjoy Smackdown. And I love Saturday pay-per-views. That's the worst part about AEW Collision is Sunday pay-per-views for all time in AEW. So,
oh God, yeah, you're right, man. Yes, I do love the Saturday pay-per-views. Thumbs up.
Yeah,
right, guys, thank you. We'll catch you next time right here in the Fireside Chat. See ya.